Okay, hello. Thank you for everybody to tune in today on the Path Nutritional Therapy. And I'm so excited. Most of you know, usually my podcasts and videos are just me. And I heard Catherine on the Primal Blueprint podcast. And I was actually walking at the lake and I had on my earbuds and my phone and I was just trying to relax and I had been blogging and I'm like, well, that sounds interesting. Algae, that's something I don't really know very much about. And I was hooked from the very beginning, just hooked. I was hooked so big that I thought, I'm just going to ask if she will come onto my podcast and talk to my people. And she said yes. So
here I am.
Yeah, here you are. So everybody,
Well,
here is Catherine, and she is the CEO and founder of Energybits. And I'm going to let you just roll with your passion. I'm just to give you a tiny backstory is it's taken about 9 years for me to discover that I have an autoimmune disease. I have an inflammatory arthritis disease that affects my spines and my joints. And so I'm always looking for anything that is going to help with energy and reduce inflammation. And I was just so intrigued when I heard you. And so why don't I just let you take the reins, if you're comfortable with that, and just share about your background, how you got involved with algae, and of course this story about your sister I just totally love.
Yeah.
And anything else that you want to share, knowing that most of my clients are women between 45 and 65.
Okay, terrific. Well, that's my age group too. I'm actually on the upper end of that. So,
well, you don't look it.
I know. I'm proof that algae works. Let me tell you. And you know, I sometimes chuckle because I tell people what I do, and they kind of look at me quizzically, algae, because you don't really kind of wake up. Some people say they want to be a doctor or a dentist or whatever, and like you never say, well, I want to be in the algae industry. So I tell people I didn't choose algae, it chose me, and I'm quite happy that it did, and I'm 10 years in, and it's like a great relationship. We're like a love story. every day it gets better and better, and it's like, I can't believe you're still with me, algae. So I'm so happy, but I'm happy to share, and I can't wait for other people to understand this love story, because it does make you feel better, makes the world better. Everything's better with algae. I should point the phrase, everything's better with algae. Great. So I'm actually Canadian. I've lived in Boston for 30 years, but and I mentioned that because I had a corporate career, and I was actually a publisher of an interior design magazine, so nothing to do with nutrition, although I had startup companies. And then out of the blue, my younger sister in Canada developed breast cancer. She's fine, by the way, and she just celebrated 10 years being cancer-free, so don't anybody worry. But I love her dearly. And so when she had the diagnosis, and her oncologist in Canada told her she needed to change her diet to an alkaline diet because it would help her heal, that was a remarkable, number one, that a doctor would do that. Number two, the only downside was that they didn't tell her what it was or why it would work. So she called me because I'm a really good researcher and I can find out anything. And I said, I have no idea either, because here I was doing international economic development and interior design. But I said, I'm here for you, and we're going to get this figured out together. So I went online, thank God for the Google, and found out that most alkaline diets are plant-based because of the phytonutrients and the chlorophyll that help build your immune system. And we'll talk about that later. So and eliminating acidic foods like dairy and processed foods and sugar, obviously. Right. So she did change her diet, and she did go through her chemo. And 10 years later, she is completely cancer-free, and we celebrated this year with Girls Weekend. But so the process changed both of us, because what happened was I started reading about plant-based nutrition. Now, you have to remember, this was 10 years ago. Right. And nobody was talking about plant-based nutrition like they are now. And after my 7th or 8th book, I thought, my God, this is powerful stuff. It's all science-based. Somebody needs to tell America about this. So I thought, well, I have no idea how I'm going to do it, or I have no credentials, but this voice inside me said, you have to do this. So, it's like when you see someone drowning in a pond, do you walk by or do you jump in to help them? So I thought, okay, I'm jumping in. I have no plan, and I have no money, but we'll make it happen. So, a lot of their serendipitous things happened. I discovered the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I went to that to get a certificate in health coaching. So within 9 months, I had at least a certificate of some kind. And then I thought, well, what now what? So I thought, well, why don't I teach people about plant-based diets? So I put a curriculum together, and I gave my lectures for free at large corporations like State Street Bank, because I'm here in Boston, hospitals, basically anybody who would let me in. Any friend I had at a corporation was like, please let me. I didn't even charge for it.
Right.
I just wanted people to not have the knowledge. So I did that for about a year, and I did some coaching on the side, but I learned 2 valuable lessons from the experience. One, everybody knows they need to change. They need to eat healthier. They know they need to eat more greens. Number 2, the problem is everyone's busy, or they don't like the flavor, or they don't want to lug all the greens home, or their kids won't eat them, or their husbands won't eat them, right? So I thought, okay, if I'm going to help people be healthier with green nutrition, I have to find something that's fast, easy, and maybe doesn't even taste green. So back to the internet, right? And I started researching different things. And after a couple of months of trying different things, I thought, well, what about that algae I found out for my sister? It was just one of many things. So I started researching it a little bit more. And as I explain, I tell other people, it was like Alice falling into, Wonderland. Yeah. Because algae I couldn't believe this. It took me 2 years to truly believe all this, because I thought, are you kidding me? It does that, it does that, it does that, and nobody knows about it. So it's a multi-billion-dollar industry in Asia. It's an agricultural crop, first of all. So it's important that people understand algae is not a supplement.
That was so shocking to me. And I am a food educator, but I see it in a lot of like food products, but I just looked at it like it was just supplemental, the B vitamins were throwing them in or something. So
exactly. Yeah. But the FDA even considers algae food because it is an ingredient in other foods. And the sad thing is, I think I'm the first person, we're the first company that's taken the time. I mean, I've taken 10 years to get to fall in love with algae and to find out every nuance about it. And so I have pictures I can show you, and you can share with your show notes.
Yeah.
What these farms look like. They're like 4 or 5 times the size of a football stadium. These are not small little local hunky cute little farms. This is an agricultural crop as big as the beef industry. Imagine the beef industry, but it's algae. And so the problem is it's just not part of our lifestyle here, but it is in Asia. Right. And it's so not only is it a multi-billion-dollar industry there where it's been grown for 10 years. In Japan, they don't take supplements. They only take chlorella algae. And chlorella is one of the 2 algae that we're going to talk about today, because there's spirulina and there's chlorella. One is a blue-green and the other is a green algae. They do completely different things in your body. And as you'll learn, chlorella is a wellness algae. It builds your immune system. And so we call ours recovery bits because it helps you recover your health. So here's this thing I'm discovering that is a huge industry in another country, been used for 50 years. It's the most studied food in the world. There's 100,000 studies. So I was on Shark Tank, and when they didn't invest, I didn't want their money, but it was great visibility. And Mark Cuban said, well, is there any science to back up what all these claims that you're making about algae? And so I paused, because I was thinking to myself, well, which one of the 100,000 do I mention on my 30 seconds of fame here? Right. And they misunderstood my pause. They thought I was pausing because I didn't have anything to say. It's like, you don't get it. It's like a mother you have 10 children. Someone says, who's your favorite child? Like, well, which one are you going to pick? Because you love them all, right? Yeah. So I laugh because people don't believe me. It's like, hey, I can send you at least 2,000 links to NIH documents. Right. Because I used to speak at triathlon clubs, and they would say, well, how can something with 1 calorie, because there's only 1 calorie per tablet.
Right. Looking at energy.
How can it give me energy? And it's like, well, this was like when I first started. Well, actually, I'll have to get back to you on that. But now I have the answer, and it's all the different nutrients, and we'll talk about that. So as I started researching algae and found out that if you swallow it, it doesn't taste green, although I prefer to chew it. Right. And it gives you energy, and you don't have to cook it, clean it. They're teeny little tablets, are the size of a baby aspirin. I thought,
and they're purse size. I mean, there's really
you make single servings, so you can press them in your handbag. if you buy them in a large bag, we give you a cute little travel tin that you can fill up and put in your pocket. So when I realized that it was scientifically proven, it's been used for 50 years, it's safe for newborns, pets, 90-year-olds. The United Nations endorses it as the answer to world hunger because it has the highest concentration of protein in the world. It has 3 times the amount of protein as steak.
That's what I'm sorry I interrupted, but I wanted to say, I know both of our daughter-in-laws, we have 3 sons and 2 are grown-ups with their own children. And we have a 2-month-old grandson and Bodhi's 6 months old now, right? And both of our daughter-in-laws are breastfeeding. Yes. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think you mentioned that on the Primal Blueprint podcast about how it's just so perfect.
Oh, it's fantastic for breastfeeding. It's for mothers because of the high protein. It's the highest, and I'll circle back to the nutrient profile of the 2 of them. But one of the things that's so amazing about spirulina is it has an essential fatty acid in it called GLA, which stands for gamma linolenic acid. And the only place that has more of that than spirulina is mother's breast milk. And the reason why there's so much of it in breast milk is because the baby's brain doubles or triples in size within the first 2 years. And so it needs this healthy fat to facilitate healthy growth. Right. So, but I tell people, your brain needs healthy fats all the time, and you can't get access to breast milk after the age of 2. So, that I'm aware of anyways. So here's your better solution. And it has all these other nutrients that, the mom needs, B and the baby, B vitamins, protein. This is all plant protein, and all the amino acids the protein's already in amino acids. Your body doesn't have to work to gain access to it. And anyways, it is a remarkable for breastfeeding and for the babies as well.
Do you recommend complementing the spirulina with the chlorella, since the chlorella is the recovery? Because childbirth, even though it's natural, is extremely traumatic
totally
on our bodies. So do you recommend that whether they're nursing or not, that chlorella would be good post-delivery?
They should take both of them, actually. So I wanted you to understand that I stumbled into algae, was blown away when I discovered it, fought it for a while saying, I'm just a little person, how can I possibly do this? But then I just thought, well, obviously the universe has selected me for one reason, and I'm very committed, I'm very science oriented, I'm very creative, I just want to help people be healthy. And the Centers for Disease Control say that you can prevent 80% of chronic illnesses with lifestyle and nutrition changes. So if we can just get proper nutrition into people, that's 90% of it.
And I know that's my whole life, is trying to convince people to engage.
If it's not easy and fast, it's not going to stick. So everything I've done between discovering algae and where we are now is to make it safe, pure, easy, fast, consumer friendly. Even the names I chose for my products, we just rebranded everything. I want this to be in everybody's lunch bag, briefcase, handbag, because that's when we're going to see some real impact in health. And by the way, it's also the most sustainable crop in the world, so it's good for Mother Earth too. That's awesome. So that's being said. So let me now give you the backdrop of what algae is. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, algae is a food group. So we have we have fruits and vegetables. Well, it's its own food group. Yes. And so just like with apples, for example, or fruit, you might have bananas and apples, so you have different types of fruit. Well, you have different types of algae, and the 2 main types are seaweed, which grow in the ocean and are high in fiber, low in nutrient value, and microalgae, which actually grow everywhere, but when they're the only 2 that are grown as a harvested crop in fresh water. And microalgae are very nutrient dense, virtually no fiber. So seaweed, high fiber, low nutrients. Microalgae, high nutrients. Okay. So within the microalgae category, you have 2 types. Just again, if we take the fruit analogy back to apples, you have Granny Smith and you have Macintosh, so lots of different types of apples. We have 2 main types of microalgae, blue-green and green. And the reason why it's important for you to understand this is because if you go on the internet, you'll often read about toxic blue-green algae. And you think, oh my God, is that the stuff I'm taking? No, It's the stuff that's in the ocean. It's the stuff that's in swamps. It's the stuff that's in lakes, your swimming pool, your aquarium. Those are things that are grown wild.